Dum, dum. Hi, everybody. It's Dan Cerrucci. I didn't realize when I scheduled this broadcast with Joe Condo, the amazing Joe Condo. I'm so happy to have him back. That this was going to be New Hampshire primary election night, and the polls are closing um, just as we are speaking. So first thing I'm going to do, Joe, is I want to go and check and make sure that we are live on Facebook and Twitter.
Sure.
And I want to make sure that my live feed on Facebook is is um, is going out publicly to without any. Let's see. I'm just checking now to see that we're on Facebook. It said they were having a problem getting me on Facebook. Let's see again. This can sometimes be a little tricky.
I'll trust you with all the technical stuff, Dan.
Well, good. I'm
Nothing I can do for you. Nothing I can do
for you. Facebook. Okay, let's see. We're having trouble playing this video, it says. All right, let me go over to Twitter. Let me go over to Twitter and see what's going on there. It may take a few moments to come through. Twitter, now known as X.
Right.
And there we are. We are on Twitter. I'm just a little concerned about the Facebook feed. Let me check again. I don't know why this is a problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove something. I'm going to remove something that was on here, and that may make this easier. Now let's see. Well, we'll have to hope that it comes on Facebook. We are live on Twitter. This is Dan Cerrucci. I'm with Joe Condo. This is also going to be, it's also on my YouTube channel, and it's also going to be on my blog at dancerrucci.com. So let's see one more time. I don't know why it's not coming through on Facebook, but we'll just have to proceed. And what I will do is I will pick it up and I will put it on Facebook later. But anyway, Joe, it's great to have you back here.
Great to be back, Dan. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
I always point this out that Joe was the last elected Republican, one of the last Republicans to be elected here in Camden County, New Jersey.
That is
We're not
correct.
going to say how long ago it was, Joe. You were like a teenager, weren't you, when you were elected?
Wasn't quite a teenager, but I was 26, I think, 27 when I got elected. 27.
You were one of the youngest people ever to be elected a county freeholder.
One of the youngest to be the freeholder. I think I was the youngest Republican ever to be freeholder director.
You became freeholder director.
Yes, I was. Yeah, I actually am the last Republican freeholder director in Camden County history, and I always used to tell people that that was a distinction that I did not want to take to my grave, with the hope that there would be another Republican freeholder director in Camden County before I go on to the great beyond. But now that they've changed the name from freeholder to commissioner, I'm now an answer to a Trivial Pursuit question. I will forever and anon be the last Republican freeholder director in Camden County history.
Because the county is so solidly Democrat, and I don't know. I mean, you have to sympathize and empathize with the Republicans in Camden County. I mean, they do try very hard, but they're in such an they're so outspent and outmaneuvered.
Right.
It's really
Right.
it's
Right.
really
I stay in frequent contact with Republican Chairman Tom Crone, and he knows exactly what the Republicans are up against in Camden County. And I take a page out of our book from the early 80s. I mean, Camden County was flipped in the early 80s. It wasn't flipped till the late 80s, but all that work started in the early 80s. And a shout out to my good friend Senator Mike Testa. He often says that the overnight success in Cumberland County. I mean, as everybody knows, we flipped Cumberland County last year, and now it's 7-0 Republican on the Board of Commissioners in Cumberland County. And I remember back when I was freeholder, excuse me, even when we had flipped Camden County, we hadn't flipped Cumberland County. So this idea that we can't flip Cumberland or Camden or Gloucester is just so much nonsense.
and you, Joe, are a great believer in organization and in grassroots organization.
You took the words out of my mouth, Dan, because it is when one is committed to growing the grassroots organizations in these counties that we'll start to see some success on the municipal level, and then success on the municipal level leads to success on the county level. And as Senator Testa always says, our overnight success was 10 years in the making. That was the same thing in Camden County. It was the early 80s. George Geist, Michael DePiro, others got together and said we need to start making some changes. Everybody wants to talk about our election in 1990 when we took control of Camden County, but nobody wants to talk about the election in 1984 when it was 7-0 Democrat and the Republicans were thought to not have a chance and got slaughtered in 1984. So 1985. Everything changed. It was just enough to get Republicans elected, and everything went away. Everything grew from there. So chipping away at the wall. I mean, I always, one must recognize how hard and how rare it is to flip a county, to sustainably flip a county. Right? We had control for 1 year out of the past 50 in Camden County. That's not what I would call a sustainable flip. Cumberland's had singular years of control over the past 40 or 50 years. This is the first time now they'll have 3 solid years of control. And frankly, I think Republicans will control Cumberland County forever now. But to flip a county is really a rare event, and it's really hard to do. And I liken it to taking over a city. I always have these medieval era sort of war stories in my head. But you have to chip away and chip away and chip away at the wall till you finally get enough people over the wall that you can invade the city. And at the risk of sounding a little too dramatic, that's really what we're doing. And in Camden County, it's the same thing. They'll chip away at town after town after town. But there's a different issue right now that's impeding our ability to build organizations. There's no secret that the party is at war with itself in all of West Jersey right now. And if some cooler heads don't prevail and some leaders of the party get these disagreeing factions at the table, the Democrats are just laughing at us.
Well, it's so unfortunate. We see this again and again, Joe. Both of us have been active in the Republican Party for quite some time. And it's so frustrating where Democrats seem so well organized and so united, and Republicans keep fighting amongst themselves. And at the last Jesse Kurt breakfast down in Atlantic City, our dear friend Jesse Kurt.
Yeah, I unfortunately wasn't able to make that, but that's a great event every year. And Jesse, of course, is just a great guy. So
yeah, Councilman
Kurtz got reelected again this year, and he deserves it. He earned it. So.
Marvelous. Now, and here's an example of a Republican who keeps winning in a solidly Democrat town, Jesse Kurtz. 100%. And what I said to the Republicans at the last breakfast was, if you keep fighting over this, the only thing you're fighting about is who gets the right to lose. Imagine the stupidity, the folly over fighting about who gets the right to lose.
Everybody fighting to be king of nothing. Again, another Mike Testa-ism is you're fighting over crumbs. All you get, even if you win, is crumbs. And so yeah, it's a difficult. And I could speak for hours and hours and hours on the problems that result from the way our party is organized. And because of the poor organization of the party, it can't build a functional organization. It's dysfunctional to its core. It's set up completely around, you mentioned the Republicans in Camden County and how they're working so hard and in many ways beating their heads against the wall. That just happens to be because that's where they live. So, you know, the Republicans who live in areas that are more heavily Republican and more predominantly Republican, and they continue to win elections, they're all thrilled with what they've accomplished. But we do very little to support our brothers and sisters in areas where they really need our help. We're so focused on geography. People, you have to work where you live and you have to live where you work. God forbid you want to go help somebody in another county. Oh, like, who are you to come into my county? Like, what are you talking about? We need to send the troops where the fight is.
You think that the state Republican Party could do more to help Republicans in counties that are not traditionally Republican, to help them build a better organization?
You say the state Republican Party, you mean New Jersey?
Yeah, in New Jersey, yeah.
There's a state Republican Party in New Jersey? There hasn't been a state Republican Party in New Jersey since Tom Kean was governor. If there's a problem with Republicans winning in New Jersey, it's because the state Republican Party is non-functional and functionally non-existent. And yes, I said that, and that will get out, and there will be comments made on that. But the New Jersey State Republican Party is non-functional and functionally non-existent. It has no power. This goes back to the organization again. The organization is so courthouse centric. It's so driven by the county organizations that if you're a powerful Republican organization, you completely ignore the state party. And if you're a heavily Democrat county, the state party ignores you. So the state party has no real influence over anything. And certainly with the Democrats have solid control of both houses. They picked up seats last year. It's still mind-boggling. But the Democrats have solid control of both houses in the governor's mansion. So the Republican state party has no.
Last year, the last round of statewide legislative elections, as we know, Joe, was supposed to be a year that the Republicans were supposed to pick up seats.
Yeah.
And instead, they lost seats.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, I will say this about that. I'm pretty good at this, if I do say so myself. And it was not until election day I realized we were in trouble. Because what was unanticipated, what I didn't anticipate, and I know others did not anticipate, was the extremely low turnout.
Mm-hmm.
On election day, you could see it was not a low turnout day. It was a no turnout day. And certainly our voters simply did not vote. Republicans simply did not come out and vote. The Democrats' numbers were low. Our numbers were terrible. And what that said to me in hindsight, I didn't see it coming in foresight, and I can speak to why we should do how we could do a better job of seeing that coming, because in every one of these events you want to learn from what happened. But not seeing that coming, we sort of expected much better result. But if your people don't vote, you lose.
You think that obviously the Republicans have to do a better job with the early voting and the mail-in ballots, don't they?
You're
that.
Did one of your viewers say, here, if you want to tweak them, ask that question? Because I'm always the contrarian, but I feel that that's an example of the party trying to follow the Democrats instead of embracing the strategy that works for us. Do we need to do a better job of getting our people who are signed up to vote by mail? Yes, we do. Cumberland County, yet again, was the highest return of Republicans in the state in terms of vote by mail. But the Democrats still outpolled us in the vote by mail. Our electorate simply doesn't want to vote by mail. So trying to get people who don't want to vote by mail to vote by mail is sort of the same mistake, I think, as trying to persuade Democrats that they should vote Republican, instead of trying to persuade Republicans that they should vote. Okay. And I feel that our the biggest, I don't want to say mistake we're making, that's too strong, but I think the biggest development need that we have as a party is understanding what it's going to take to persuade our people to vote. The biggest mistake that continues to be made, and this is a mistake, and I watched it all of last year, and I just put my head in my hand because it just keeps happening. We take a poll, we identify likely voters. And if you're not a likely voter, we ignore you in the poll. So then we try to figure out how to persuade likely voters to vote Republican. And then we identify a body of voters called persuadable voters. And we want to focus our campaign on trying to persuade voters to vote Republican. You listen to that and you say, well, what's wrong with that? Well, what's wrong with that is in a low turnout election like last year, we left 75% of our voters on the table because nobody bothered to ask the following question. If you're not likely to vote this year, what could we do to get you to vote? What would make you a likely voter? What would get you to sign up to vote by mail? What would get you? We sent out, we're going to do a better job of vote by mail. You started with this earlier. We send out vote by mail applications to people who vote at the polls every year. They vote at the polls every year. They don't want to vote by mail. And even if they do, like, they're not the people we should be trying to attract. We're trying to get Republicans to vote by mail. We want to get the ones who voted in 2020 but haven't voted since. Well, they're not likely voters. I know they're not likely voters. That's the point. We have to try to encourage them to vote. So I've always focused on the voters who are dismissed as not being likely voters for the same reason, right? It's easier, more effective to get someone who's, I would rather try to persuade somebody who's predisposed to vote for me to come out and vote than to try to persuade someone who's predisposed to vote against me to vote for me. Because all I've done in that conversation is antagonize them enough to make sure they come out and vote against me.
So you think we need to really do a more in-depth job, and that we're forgetting a lot of people. We're not doing a careful enough job of voter analysis or potential voter analysis.
I could not state it better than you just did. Our voter analysis is I think sorely lacking, and we need to do a much better job of voter analysis. We should know on election day, before the polls close, whether we won or lost, because we should know who voted. And we should know before election day who's going to vote for us and who's not going to vote for us. And if we know who's going to vote for us and who's not going to vote for us, then we want to get out the people who are going to vote for us and ignore the people who aren't going to vote for us. It's our opponent's job to get those people out. Well, why are we doing our job, doing their job for them? Well, a high turnout favors Republicans. Only if it's Republicans that are voting.
Right. Why do you think so few Republicans came out to vote the last time around in an election that they were supposed to do well in New Jersey? What? I will. Why were they not motivated or what?
Ding, 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 ding. I will freely admit that I, like everybody else, is trying to Monday morning quarterback last year's election. But my analysis is quite simple, and I could not have been more emphatic earlier when you mentioned the state Republican Party. I truly believe that in a state election, because let's look at the 4-year cycle, right? I'm going to state the obvious for a minute, but it's to show a point. In the 2020 election, this is the typical 4-year cycle. The 2020 election is a presidential election. Everybody votes in a presidential election, and the presidential politics drive the results. 2021 is a gubernatorial election. People aren't as jazzed about the gubernatorial election as they are about the presidential election, but the gubernatorial election gets everybody's attention.
Right. It gets a lot of people's attention. Yeah.
It gets a lot of people's attention because people love to vote for their executives. Now the next 2 cycles kick in. Now you have the federal election, but it's a federal midterm. So maybe there's a U.S. senator at the top of the ticket, or maybe not. Maybe it's just House. Well, when you have a U.S. Senate election, certainly in New Jersey, right? Nobody pays that much attention to a U.S. Senate election. Let's just call it what it is. Democrats are going to win the U.S. Senate election in New Jersey, and everybody goes, okay. And that's it. Republicans haven't fielded, a really good candidate since Christie Whitman. So that doesn't even generate a lot of enthusiasm. When it comes down to a House race at the top of the ticket, in most congressional districts, the incumbent's a lock. So there's no reason to come out and vote. Now, I always say when I'm always dealing with county commissioner candidates these days, I tell them frankly, and I say this because I was the equivalent of a county commissioner myself as a freeholder.
Right. They called it freeholder then, but you were commissioner.
Yeah. Right. And frankly, I always thought commissioner was a better name, not for the reasons they changed it, but I always thought it made more sense. You go outside of the state and you say, I'm a freeholder, like, what's that? I'm like, that's a county commissioner. So, but now I got sidetracked on. I always tell the candidates that no one in the history of the world ever woke up on election day and said, I wasn't going to vote today, but you know what? I got to get out there and vote for those county commissioners. Like, no one goes out and votes for the county commissioners. Elections are driven, right? Now, you've been around long enough to laugh at that because it's true. And so elections are driven by the top of the ballot and the bottom of the ballot. Often if there's
most people don't even know who their state legislators are.
But that brings me, you'll notice I left off the fourth year of the 4-year cycle, which was last year. The top of the ticket's the state legislator. And that's exactly right. No one even knows who their state legislators are. Yeah. I mean, I know state legislators love to think that everybody knows and cares that they're state legislators, but for the most part, people don't know or care who their state legislators are. And again, we take these polls of likely voters. Well, if you're likely to vote in a legislative year, you're more likely to know who your state legislator is. Take a poll of all registered voters and see what kind of results you get. You're going to find out nobody knows who their state legislator is.
No.
Right? So that even legislators who have tremendously high name recognition in an off year where only people voting are the people that pay attention to these things. But that's what happens last year. State legislatures at the top of the ticket. It was another Murphy midterm, if you will, but Murphy's not got the negative attention that he had, 4 years ago.
But this is, that New Jersey has this weird rule. I think it's one of only 2 or 3 states. Another one is Virginia, that they hold their statewide legislative and gubernatorial elections on what is called the off years.
Right.
So they hold them during years that there are no national elections.
Right.
So that tends to favor the incumbent party, the people who hold the power, because they get their people out, the machine gets their people out. It's an insider's sort of election where people don't even know about it. They're not even aware about it.
They don't care about it.
They don't care about it.
They care about it. And so you're wise to identify, it's New Jersey and Virginia, you're correct. And you're wise to identify that what we've done in this state and in Virginia is separate the federal elections from the state elections. But that dichotomy also exposes why last year was such a disaster for our party. And you're right, there's the power of the incumbency. They have the money, they have the machinery, they have the patronage, they have all the things that it takes to crank out their vote in a low turnout election. But why is it such a low turnout election? Because nobody cares about the state legislature.
Mm-hmm.
They simply don't. Nobody cares what the state legislature is doing unless it affects them directly. But for the most part, people simply don't care. And that brings us back to, it's our job as Republicans to point out to them why they should care. Make them care. Ask them what would make them care. Should we maybe take a poll of that? I alluded to that earlier. If you're unlikely to vote this year, why aren't you voting? All politicians are the same. Okay, then why vote at all? Right. So, but we can show you the difference, not if we continue to chase after the Democrats and behave like Democrats and say, oh, the Democrats are winning on this issue, so we ought to probably move to the
Well,
left.
to be a party that's for, the same, only lighter, would be like Democrat light.
Yeah, right. And you and I have had this
Giving
discussion
people
before.
a choice. You know what President Reagan said?
Reagan, right.
We need to paint in bold colors.
Right,
If,
right.
if we don't paint in bold colors, people won't know the difference between us and them.
Right, right, exactly. And Senator Testa says it all the time. You don't beat vanilla with French vanilla. I mean, you need to give people a meaningful choice, two different options. And this is another. I mean, I don't want to be too hard on the party, right? Because then it's like, okay, well, who are you to tell us how to run our party? But at the end of the day, the party, I've seen it all my political career, which you didn't want to mention the number earlier, but I'm coming up on 40 years of this. And after 40 years, I've seen us win and I've seen us lose and I've seen us lose some more. And then I've seen us win. And it's always the same thing. When we have the courage to stand up and present ourselves as a viable alternative that will be better than our opponents, we win elections. And now I'm going to take another shot at the state party. The state party sits around, the hangers on, they sit around and sit around and sit around until the people are fed up with the Democrats enough to vote Republican. Then they all jump in like they did something and won an election. And then eventually things go back to the Democrats because the Republicans didn't really win. The people just got fed up enough to send the Democrats a message. And once they got the message, Republicans don't last very long because they're not voting for the Republicans statewide. They might vote for Republicans in certain areas, but they're not voting for the Republicans statewide. They're voting against the Democrats from time to time. The Republican Party ought to recognize that in New Jersey.
I'm just looking at the figures from New Hampshire. There's about a quarter of the votes in.
Yeah.
Wait, they're just being updated. 25% of the votes in. It's now 52-46. It's been holding with a 6-point spread. Now, right. Joe, I don't think 6 points, considering what the polls showed. I think if Nikki Haley keeps this thing within single digits, she's going to declare a victory tonight, Joe. What do you think?
I think she will. I think she should declare a victory. I'm looking for, I saw something, and of course, Trump's projected to win now by both CNN and Fox News, like big surprise there, with 18% of the vote in. But yeah, I mean, if she keeps it to single digits, she should project that as a victory. I was looking here for an article that I saw just before we got on. I can't find it quickly, so I'm going to focus back on you and not on trying to find this article. But the nature of the article was comparing the New Hampshire voter to the Iowa voter, the New Hampshire Republican no, I have to say the New Hampshire voter to the Iowa Republican, because in the New Hampshire primary, a lot of independents or what the unaffiliated voters end up voting as well. And so where it really compared the two states was that the Republicans in Iowa are much more conservative, a much higher percentage of evangelical Christians who go for Trump by big numbers, much more MAGA, willing to admit that they're MAGA Republicans, where New Hampshire Republicans not so much. And so it's kind of not surprising that Nikki Haley, who at this point now, and let me make just a quick comment about Nikki Haley. 2 years ago, I would have given anything to see Nikki Haley run for president on our party's banner. And if Nikki Haley gets the nomination this year, I will be just thrilled to death because Nikki Haley should be our president.
I will support her as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Nikki Haley. So I have nothing negative to say about Nikki Haley. I don't think she can get the nomination in the end. I think Donald Trump has it locked up. But I'm happy to see, and this is where I say she should declare victory. I'm happy to see that I'm happy to see what we're seeing, at the risk of being redundant. Nikki Haley is the only one left. So all of the non-Trump vote in the party is going to go to Nikki Haley. We're learning from New Hampshire tonight, and a long way to go before this is over, but we're learning from New Hampshire tonight, and I think we will learn from continued primaries what true percentage of Republican insiders, right? Republican primary voters are the insiders of the insiders, right? So we're learning what percentage of the insiders have become disenchanted with Donald Trump as our presidential nominee? And,
Right.
and that information, if it's channeled positively, can ensure a victory for our party in November. If it's allowed to become divisive, then game could be over. And this is where we don't have any better national leadership than we have state leadership. There's no national Republican Party. So there's no national leadership. It's Trump and everybody else. And the majority of Republican primary voters.
He's such a huge personage. He's such a huge persona.
Right.
You know,
right.
he takes all the oxygen out of the room. It's now 7% spread.
Yeah.
And I see that the New York Times estimates at this point that Trump will win by 11%. That would be a double-digit win.
That would be at
now,
least
in my mind, a double-digit win would be significant. But if she keeps it to single digits, then she's going to have bragging rights. You agree?
Almost. I agree that if she keeps it to single digits, she's got bragging rights. If she keeps it to single digits, I would declare victory. Right? She's not going to declare a delegate victory, but she's going to declare a victory for her.
Right. But what about if it's 11%?
And that's where I push back slightly, because I don't think 11% is enough.
Okay.
I think Trump's got to win New Hampshire by 20%.
Oh, I don't think that's going to happen, Joe.
I don't think that's going to happen, which means, and I guess I didn't finish the thought. He's got to win New Hampshire by 20% to put an end to her.
Okay.
He's not going to win by 20%. Very unlikely, right? At this point, it looks like he's not going to win by 20%. No one predicted he would win by 20%, which means Nikki Haley's going to be around. Nikki Haley's not going to drop out of this race 11%, 12%, 15% even. Nikki Haley's not dropping out of this race. And that will embolden her, especially going into South Carolina, right? That will embolden her because she could win South Carolina.
Well, some people say she can. Some people say she can't. I mean,
I didn't say can or can't. I said could. She could win South Carolina. But she's not going anywhere if she stays within 15 points.
Now, let's look at New Jersey. And we're still at 25% of the votes in New Hampshire. So we've got 3/4 of the way to go. New Jersey, the night that he lost to Phil Murphy, and that was an excruciating loss. It was I was so disappointed when Jack Ciattarelli lost.
Yep.
But the very night, let's say he waited a few days and then he conceded. And then when on the day that he conceded, he announced he was running again in 2025.
Right.
You think it was a good idea that to announce right after you were defeated that you're going to run again?
Yeah. I think that was a real good idea for Jack Ciattarelli's campaign.
Okay.
Right. And I want to be clear when I say that, what I mean when I say that is that Jack made it clear. I might be down, but I'm not out. That's the kind of fighter I am. That's the kind of leader I am. And I'm not just going to come back 3 years from now and throw my name into the primary. I'm going to keep fighting. And he's been all over New Jersey for the past 3 years. I'm going to keep fighting for New Jersey. I'm going to keep fighting for the cause of the Republican Party. I'm going to keep fighting for the people. And I'm going to keep my name out there. And I'd really kind of like it if everybody would get behind me and we can run for governor for 4 whole years instead of running for governor for 4 months in 2025. So do I think it was a good idea? Yeah. Some folks in the real inside were like, wait a minute, this guy just got beaten. He's running around like he's well, yeah, there's that, but what are you really complaining about when you say that? He's not giving anybody else a chance to run. You want to run. There are others that are throwing their name in the ring here to run against them. Why? I don't know. They're trying to make names for themselves, maybe. I don't know. But
Jack has basically been running ever since the end of the last election, and as you and I know, he has been everywhere. I'm gonna push back on that statement a little bit. Jack's been running since 2 years before the last election, right? So he's already been running for 4.5 years. And nobody's out there working harder. I don't know how he has the energy. He's everywhere all the time.
But yeah, if I wanted to be governor, and let there be no mistake about it, you couldn't pay me enough money to be governor. But if I wanted to be governor, what else do you have to do between gubernatorial elections except run for governor? See, that's one advantage that Jack has, in that he doesn't have a business that he really has to run anymore. And I guess I shouldn't say that. I don't know what he does as far as the business goes, so I'm kind of talking out of school there a little bit. But he certainly has the time and the resources to campaign the way that he does. That's clear. And he's not holding an existing public office, which some people see, right, as what am I trying to say? That's not so great for him. That doesn't. Well, why? So our sitting legislators, executives, county officers, anybody else that wants to run, they're busy doing what it is that they're doing, and they're focused and committed to, and duty bound, frankly, to honor their commitments to their offices, where Jack doesn't have that. He doesn't have to be in Trenton fighting with the Democrats every week. He can just take shots at Governor Murphy and run around the state and curry the favor of the Republicans that are going to. He'll get the column, and probably he got the column in every county in the state last time.
Don't you think Bramnick, Senator Bramnick, would be formidable if he chooses to run? I mean, what I hear is Bramnick is going to announce very, very soon. Yeah. I heard he was going to announce in a few days, like on the 27th.
Yeah, I don't know when he'll announce, if he'll announce. They say he's going to announce. Would he be formidable? John Bramnick knows what he's doing. He'll put together a real campaign. Will he be able to pull? So here's the other thing. We still have the column vote. I know there are people who don't like the column vote. I'm a big believer. I wouldn't even have a primary election. I'm so far the other extreme when it comes to our party selecting candidates. But Bramnick is not going to pull the columns away from Chitterelli in very many counties. And
I have to tell people that are listening that are going to watch this, because we're recording this, and I'm going to, although it's not live on Facebook tonight, I'm going to put it on Facebook. I'm going to put it on LinkedIn. I'm going to put it on my blog. When Joe is talking about the column, he's talking about the organization line in the counties, which is very important in New Jersey, to get the Republican organization line under the title regular Republican organization, to be the Republican nominee in that county.
Right. The candidates that are endorsed by the county organization in that county.
Right. And that's very, very important in New Jersey. And that really is like a huge part of getting the nomination in New Jersey. So you've got to go around to these individual counties, 21 different counties, and get what they call the line.
That's right. And each county in general has a different mechanism by which the line or the county endorsement is awarded. Everywhere from the county chair has the power to select, to we have a full-blown convention by delegation, by proportion, and a secret ballot. Right. And that, so it's all over the map. Every county does its own thing.
It's a patchwork.
Well, absolutely it is, but each county does what it does. And if you want to run for governor, you better well know how each county runs its convention and how each county awards the line.
Jack has been around this block. He knows these counties. He's been in every county. He's been in every little town, every crevice of New Jersey. I mean, it's just the man. I don't know how he does it. The fortitude that it must take, but he knows the mechanism, and he knows the counties, and the people, and the Republican rank and file voters know him.
Right. Absolutely. So this is a political theory discussion, not so much a Jack Chitterelli discussion at this point, but I can't help myself. Part of the reason that people who don't like the county endorsements is because if you think about it, there are 21 people in this state of 9 million. What's New Jersey have these days? 9 million people, I think. There are 21 people in the state of New Jersey who theoretically get to decide who our candidate for governor is. And those are the 21 county chairs. Because if you're a county chair and you're running your county, whatever convention style you have, one would expect you to deliver the party line for the candidate that you want to endorse. So if I'm
Oh,
running for governor, I need to know that these 21 folks are on my side. Now, a county chair who wants to be a tyrant, especially in a county that isn't completely controlled by Republicans, isn't going to last long as county chair. So, of course, the county chair has to get the support of their own parliament or their own county committee members, their own screening committee, however they do it, their own delegates to their convention. So they do need to have the support of the rank and file for their selection. And that's, again, where Jack's an absolute master. He gets the support of the rank and file Republicans in all of those towns, and people, they love them. And their county chair who wants to give the line to somebody else is going to be met with resistance from the folks in their own organization.
County chairs are very, very powerful in New Jersey. Every state is different. That's the way our federal system works, thank God.
Yeah.
I think it's a wonderful system. The fact that we don't have, that the national elections are not centrally controlled by some central body is very important. That the elections are run by the states and the counties is a very important part. Thank God the founders, what they created of our federal system.
You and I are completely agreed on that. Completely agreed on that. And I will continue to fight to my dying breath to preserve the loose confederation of independent and sovereign states that this nation is.
Absolutely. Now it looks it's running at about 8% now. And now the New York Times projects that Trump will win by 12%. So that's what it's going to be. So if he wins by 12%, yes, there had been some polls saying he was 20, 23, 24% ahead. But there had also been some polls saying that it was like there maybe were one or two polls that said it was in single digits. So this would be somewhere in the middle. But you're right. I still think even if it's 12%, that she's going to have some bragging rights, and she's going to go on to South Carolina.
Right, and so maybe we've created a trichotomy where if the president smokes her at 20% or more, maybe the governor decides to bow out. If the governor is within single digits, she's going to declare that a victory. And anywhere in between, Nikki Haley's staying in this race, and President Trump's going to have his hands full for a little while.
28% of the votes are in now. I say it's like 8% right now. And let me ask you this, Joe, as we conclude this, because I want to wrap this up. I want to remind everybody, if you can't see this on Facebook now, it's going to be on Facebook. I'm going to arrange it. Don't worry about it. It has been live on Twitter. What do you think about a Trump-Haley ticket, Joe?
Well, I'm thrilled that you would close with that question, because one point that I was contemplating making, that now I'll make, is that I surely hope. Now, President Trump doesn't call me for my advice, but maybe he'll be watching your show later, so maybe he'll get to hear this. But I hope he does not go down the path of trashing her, as he has done with his opponents in the past, because I think that Nikki Haley, as I said earlier in this program, should be our president. If it's not going to be in this cycle, I would like to think that she's using this cycle to get her name and her organization out there for the next cycle. And a Vice President Haley would be a wonderful combination if she would be willing to do that, and if the president would be willing to do that. I think that Governor Haley brings the wing of the party that isn't completely Trumpish back in November, and gives us the opportunity to start to prop her up for her eventual run for president as a vice president, rather than as a used to be governor from South Carolina.
I think it's a hell of a ticket. And let's face it, whoever the vice presidential nominee is, Joe, this is going to be unique, because that person gets the jump, the leg up on the presidency in 4 years.
I'll
Okay,
throw
not 8 years, 4 years.
4 years, right? I'll
You can
throw
only serve one term.
right. Well, this is where age comes in because President Trump could. It's not. It's not neither above him nor beneath him to resign after 2 years so he can run again for 4. But that's real. That's real chess game. But I would close with, if not Governor Haley, then who? Who else does the Republican Party have to make a meaningful vice presidential candidate?
Well, that could bring something to the ticket that would unite the party, and I think it
Better
would
than Nikki Haley's?
yeah, and I think it would scare the hell out of the Democrats if you had a Trump-Haley ticket. I think it would scare the hell out of them.
The only candidate I could think of better than Nikki Haley would be Kristen Sinema. And I don't know that Kristen Sinema is ready to get on a ticket with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So
she's an independent now.
Well, so you see what happened, how long she lasted as a Democrat. You see how long she lasted as a Democrat. So, but I don't think for a minute that ticket could possibly form. It would probably implode quicker if it formed. Governor Haley can hold her own against anybody, so she can certainly hold her own.
She's very adept. She's very adept.
Wonderful.
She's very clever. She's very good on her feet.
Yeah.
She's staked out some very good positions, and I think you're right that Trump should he should not trash her tonight, no matter what happens.
Right.
He should
run on his record.
Line of communication open with her. Keep lines of communication open. Don't rule out anybody for vice president, including her.
Right.
I wouldn't rule out anybody because you don't know what the landscape is going to be.
Right. Unlike eight years ago, where he had to get rid of his competition in the Republican field, he does not have to do that this time.
Right.
What he should be doing is running on his record, which, despite the left-wing press, was stellar in many ways. Right. And he should be trashing the Biden administration for all of its failures and pointing out what we all know.
Exactly.
Joe Biden's a shill for a Kamala Harris presidency. And if the Republicans don't run on that, call it what it is, Joe Biden is a shill for a Kamala Harris presidency, but they know she can't win, so they would rather run the system than put it to the public vote.
Yeah, and how likely is it that Biden will even serve out the 4 years of his term if he's reelected, Joe?
I'm not sure he'll serve out the day after he's sworn in. This idea that Joe Biden's running for reelection because he's going to serve another 4 years is a joke. I mean, you really have to be out of touch to think that this is anything other than a cover for a Kamala Harris presidency, but the Democrats don't have the integrity to actually run her because they know she won't win.
You said it all right there. And thank you, Joe. It's been great, as always, chatting with you. We're going to do this again.
I hope we do, Dan. Thank you for having me. I always enjoy talking to you. Stay well, my old friend. And if you ever want to talk to me again, you know where to find me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. And like I said, this will be on Facebook. It'll be on my YouTube channel. It'll be on my blog at dancerrucci.com, and everybody will be able to watch it. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, Dan.